Hey everybody, and hello humans. This is Not a Robot's Marvel Comics review show, tying in where we're some of the King in Black tie-in issues as well as everything else that came out the week of March 3rd. This week we are covering America Chavez Made in the USA #1, X-Men Demon Days #1, Power Pack #4, Hellions #10, Runaways #34, Avengers Mech Strike #2, Avengers #43, King in Black Thunderbolts #3, King in Black Hulkling and Wiccan #1, King in Black Gwenom vs. Carnage #3, and King in Black Captain America #1. My name is Kirk. I'm the 45th best at what Wolverine does. And with me today are my co-hosts, Anthony.
What up, everyone? I switched sides. Was on DC, now I'm on Marvel.
Brandon.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Isaiah.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
And Nicole. We summarize, analyze, and editorialize every issue we cover and strive to keep it all about the content with no publisher influence. We are on Twitter at NotARobotComics. I'm on Twitter at KirkHopko. Anthony is on at WaltGator93. And we answer showmail at notarobotcomics@gmail.com. The next part is dedicated to those that support us with their hard-earned money, but that's not the only way you can. Like, subscribe, download, and share our episodes as much as possible, because nothing helps quite as much as that. Now it's time to say a thank you to the humans who help support us by subscribing to our Patreon, with tiers starting at just $1 a month so that we can keep bringing you more content. This is the Not a Robot, Anti-Beep Bop, Must Be a Human, Shoutout and Roll Call. And that shoutout goes to our humans, Weird Science Jim, Blue Mondays, Hollister, and Roch Crockett. Big salute to all of you and an ever bigger thank you. So what are you waiting for? Sign up and show us that you might be a human after all, and get a shout out on the Not a Robot, Anti-Beep Bop, Must Be a Human roll call. So with that, let's get some introductions out of the way. I've spoken enough already, so I'm going to pass it over to Anthony. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Anthony.
What up, everybody? Let's see. Starting reading comics back actually right a week before DC Rebirth started. Ever since then, just diving in glorious. Thankfully, through the Marvel Unlimited app, I read all of the Ultimate comics, read so much other past, present comics, the DC Infinite as well, as it's now called the DC Infinite. Loving it all. Loving DC, Marvel, and Boom Studios.
Thank you, Anthony. And Isaiah?
Hey, guys. How you doing? My name is Isaiah Zapata. I am actually a film direction student out here in the Midwest. My journey with comics actually began at the ripe age of 12. Where I was still pretty familiar with comics, but not too savvy with it. And I actually asked my aunt, to purchase me a comic back when I was 12. And it just so happened that first comic was not a very good comic to start off with. It was Spider-Man's Kraven's Last Hunt. Yeah.
That's a starting point.
Nice.
Wow.
That's a rough start.
Yeah.
But I fell in love with comics from there. And, I own a couple. I guess my pride and joy is probably the first appearance of Carnage. I just love symbiotes, so King in Black kind of has a little space in my heart.
Thanks, Isaiah. Nicole?
Hey guys, so I'm pretty new to the comic sphere, but I am super into superheroes. I've seen every Marvel movie. I've read most of the X-Men series. It's one of my favorite, but yeah. So I look forward to being able to get more into
Thanks,
it.
Nicole. And last but certainly not least, Brandon.
Hi, everybody. You may or may not know me from the DC Comics Review podcast. I'm also over there, but I guess to re-summarize my origin story, I've been reading comics pretty much for my entire life. Like Isaiah, I'm also a student, and I guess my gateway back into reading weekly comics was DC Rebirth, which kind of provided me an avenue to read week to week, throughout school. And since then, I've used that as an opportunity to explore past titles that I may have missed or get caught up on certain series that interest me. So I've got entirely too many long boxes and trade paperbacks sitting in my room, but that's okay because I enjoy them immensely. And if I had to pick something that I'm most proud of in my collection, that's hard to choose. I would either say, even though this is a Marvel review podcast, I would probably say Wolfman and Perez's New Teen Titans #1 that I found signed.
Nice.
Or finding the first 2 issues of the unfinished Alan Moore epic Big Numbers at a small shop near me. That was quite a find, but super happy to be here and excited to talk about comics.
Thank you, Brandon. And I guess I'll say a little bit about myself. My name is Kirk. I am a huge all-around geek and nerd. I love it all, from comics to video games to board games, all kinds of fantasy, horror, sci-fi, you name it. And I've been there at least a little bit. But Marvel is my addiction that has been going a very long time. I had an on and off relationship with comics for most of my younger life. When I was a kid, I would go to the library and pick up whatever comics they had. I was lucky enough to live near a library that actually picked up comic singles. So I got to read through, well after the arcs were over, I got to read through things like Maximum Carnage, the first Spider-Man Venom team up and things like that when I was a kid. I moved away from that area and sort of fell out of comics until I was a teenager and could start buying my own. But then I was buying small runs and series like that. The only other thing that I read actively throughout my entire life, which my parents definitely should not have been getting for me, was Todd McFarlane's Spawn, which is not a Marvel comic. But my dad was a collector of the Spawn figures. Oddly enough, he didn't read the comics, but he segued into buying me the comics, and I have almost every Spawn comic except for the past couple of years that's been released. And my proudest comic is a signed, framed Spawn issue 100 by Todd McFarlane. So
Awesome.
Nice.
but with that, before we dive into all the reviews, is there any news for those listening at home? You may not know this, but we are recording on the eve of WandaVision's big finale. So a couple of us here are vibrating with anticipation, and some of us are even considering staying up way too late to watch it as soon as possible. But I think some of my co-hosts have more common sense than I do.
You would assume. Yeah.
So is there any big news, comics or otherwise?
That's a good one.
No, yeah.
That is the real question. Is there any good big news? This might be a hot take, but and it's more of a DC type of thing, but I think comics in general would kind of just fit into this news segue. The actress that plays Mera in Aquaman, I can't think of her name all of a sudden.
Amber Heard.
Yeah, she might not be Mera anymore.
Well, it was. Yeah, it was Amber.
Yeah.
Apparently, Comic News, was it CCN? They're like Comic News Network, yeah. They reported that she might not be in Aquaman 2. I think that deserves a small round of applause. Whether that may be the right answer or the wrong answer, I'd like to see Aquaman do better. I wasn't too big of a fan of that. I think Marvel kind of, has that lock and key down on movie universes, at least as far as that goes.
Supposedly, it's Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones, because they did a article, but I think it was Variety did an article about like her moving, and at the end of the last paragraph in the article, they mentioned that Emilia Clarke will be Mera in Aquaman 2. It's a small paragraph, but I was like, that's a big thing to end on.
Yeah, just a tiny little footnote.
Yeah, I don't know, like, if she was not supposed to say anything, but somebody showed me that image. I'm like, wait, they're ending it on that, and nobody else is realizing this? Because it was like her selling her house, so not many people will ever notice or even care, but it's just at the very bottom. I was like, oh, okay, this should be a lot bigger news, I feel like.
Well, in comic news, I don't know if anyone has been following Cable, but they just announced that the 12th issue will be its last, which I think means that will
Makes
be
sense.
the second Dawn of X title to reach its end. And I wonder if that was planned from the start, because I know when I was
Fallen Angels.
I when I had been reading, because I think I only made it to about issue 6, and then I kind of fell off for a little bit. I don't know where they are now, but I didn't really get this sense that it was a series that would go on for 35 or 40 or 50 issues or something. So I wonder if that was planned from the start. I wonder if that was Jerry Duggan's original plan, to just have 12 issues of young Cable.
I feel like it could have been planned, especially since the first chunk of the young Cable arc was all devoted to placing him in X of Swords.
Yeah.
And in a much bigger way than some of the other Dawn of X titles were a bit more freeform. Like they had their own stories starting and then X of Swords kind of interrupted, where Cable's intro was literally giving him a reason to take part. Like they're giving him the magic space sword that is going to save the day in X of Swords. Spoiler alert for X of Swords, by the way, audience. Sorry.
If you haven't read it at this point, get on that.
So I can totally see that the last bit of his run, like not having a huge direction, I think they just needed a way to tie him into X of Swords, which I didn't mind.
Yeah.
I liked his pieces in the beginning there.
Oh yeah, but I think, even if it is only 12 issues, I mean, like I said, I kind of fell off, but if you can tell, 12 solid issues of a Cable story, you don't need to drag on, that's fine, because it kind of ties into the greater, Dawn of X stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather have 12 good issues than a long run that it just drags on and is not that good at all.
Yeah,
by the time
exactly.
it gets finished.
What? You mean you're not here for Cable 144 watching him do his taxes?
Exactly. Like, I don't need
maybe next run
257 issues of Cable doing that. I think it's more than I can take.
All right. If that's it for news, I think we're all set to move on into reviews. So to kick us off, I'm going to hand it over to Nicole to talk about America Chavez, Made in the USA #1.
All right. Yeah. Hi. This comic, I believe, is the first in the America Independent series, and it's a cute little tale, kind of about America where she is as you would know her, and then also her origin story. It doesn't go deep into what happened to cause her to be where she is, but it does go how she got to where she is, the family that she is adopted by. It's a cute little heartwarming story between that, and then it starts off with them fighting giant badger mole. And it's her and I believe the West Coast Avengers. And then it ends on a pretty emotional note where she is letting out her frustration about how she grew up without her biological parents and how people are currently trying to go after her adoptive family. So she goes to the top of a building and basically punches her way through the building
through space
in order to stop her family from burning in a fire.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really cute. I liked it a lot. It's very interesting to me that they chose to leave kind of what actually happened to her mom completely out of this issue. They basically say that her mom's got into some sort of accident one way or another, and that's how America ended up where she is, which is
yeah, and just a little bit of background on America Chavez there. This is, I believe, some of the first that we're going to shine a spotlight on her adopted family. We have seen references to them, but they haven't really taken the stage as much. So tying them in, the people who took in this scared girl with superpowers from another dimension. And it's sort of the first look at, I guess, what we'll call the more human side of America Chavez. So what are everyone's thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, I read it just a couple days ago, and going into American Chavez, I'm not too familiar with her. So reading it, I like that, this is the character who she is. They started off the way she is, her personality, her likes, her dislikes. And it wasn't just something that was kind of just tossed in to fill a narrative. So she feels very real, but I do believe that this issue kind of started off a little slow, and even at the end, it didn't have a huge impact. But I would like to see how this the series takes off and continues forward. Giving us the huge story arcs that will hopefully make this a great storyline.
Yeah, I think for #1 issue, very good. We get introduction of her friendship with Kate, which was established back in Young Avengers as well as West Coast Avengers. We learn a little bit about her origin, nicely done, as well as want us to know a little bit more about her. As for the art, it was good. There's really it's plain obvious why we have this book, because she's going to be coming up in the MCU. With Marvel, they do that quite a bit. Any new character or team, they'll push them miniseries or even ongoing. This is a miniseries, so we're seeing slight hints, so we already know the character going into the MCU. They did a nice job on that. Now for the cliffhanger, I would say I want to read more. However, it didn't end me as like, oh, I can't wait to read more. I just barely, because I do like how we did see somebody behind, like when she's saving the day, we see a mysterious figure. But I think I gotta give this one just a 7 out of 10. Good issue. I would recommend it, but I don't know. I feel as if, because I was very looking forward to this book ever since I read her in West Coast Avengers. Loved her, enjoyed her appearance, especially when she made her cameo appearance in Superior Spider-Man. But I don't know, this one, it didn't really do the trick for me. Like, I enjoyed it, but not over the top.
Yeah, I think it's kind of serendipitous that. Oh, sorry, I mean to cut you off, but it's kind
Good, I'm done.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of serendipitous that this book came out just as I finally got the opportunity to read The Ultimates by Al Ewing, which is a book that features America Chavez in a pretty heavy fashion. So it was interesting to be able to go back and read her origins, which I was not very familiar with. But it was an interesting peek behind the curtain. I thought it established her character fairly well. The interactions with Kate Bishop were also very nice, as well as her girlfriend that she had met in West Coast Avengers, I believe. In terms of the art, it's always good to see Carlos Gomez doing work. He did that Mary Jane miniseries that got canceled a couple months back, so I'm glad he's still around. And I think that while it was kind of a fairly cut and dried story, nothing too spectacular. It didn't really need to be. It wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel, so I would say it was fairly solid all the way around with, an interesting enough cliffhanger to potentially bring me back for the second issue. But all in all, I would say a solid read, nothing too fancy, but if you're looking for an introduction to this character, you really can't go wrong with that. So I would probably give this one a 7 out of 10, maybe a 7.5 on a good day.
All right. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of America Chavez. I've loved her as a character the few times I've got to meet her, both in West Coast Avengers, Ultimates, Young Avengers, and her off-maligned solo run from a few years ago. I found the art in this one, it was good. It's, like you said, Carlos Gomez, putting in the work. It's a really good art. I think if I had to start nitpicking, I think the only things that I really had wrong with it were, like was said, sort of the literal hooded figure in the last panel of the comic is a bit of a cop-out on a cliffhanger. It's really...
it's a little corny.
Mm-hmm. Especially with we had the creepy letter saying, watch out for your family, or keep your family close to home. I don't remember the exact wording. And I think that would have been cliffhanger enough. They didn't have to give us just a mysterious stranger. I was personally left curious on if it is going to be heavily tying into her family, or if it's still going to tie back into her sort of extra-dimensional family, because her last solo run had a lot to do, if I remember right, with her grandmother being sort of a guiding force to help her come into her powers and things like that.
Right.
I liked the writing. I liked everything like that. I felt like it starting with the giant badger moles was a bit of almost making fun of the West Coast Avengers, that, we're not walking in on them fighting off a supervillain. We're walking in on them fighting big badgers, and in West Coast Avengers, they were fighting big sharks and Tigra, but she was big. So just a lot of exaggerated animal-related things. It makes them feel like pest control.
Maybe that's all they can do at this point.
Right? They dropped Spidey in at the end, and he got a couple quips off, but he didn't really feel like he was a necessary addition to the comic. He was just sort of a fun nod. But I liked it, so I gave it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I totally forgot Spider-Man was even in it. That's like how unimportant to the plot he was.
Yeah, but it's a standard comic. You gotta have your obligatory Spider-Man cameo. They do that in every book. They had it in Morbius. They had it in Hawkeye miniseries with Rosenberg. It just happens. You gotta throw it in there. It's him or Wolverine, I guess.
Well, it's
he was there to represent the East Coast. He was letting the best coast.
Right, and it's it's like in TV where they have to do the shot of the New York skyline to tell you that you're in New York, but in Marvel exactly. They don't want to draw the New York skyline every time, so they just draw Spider-Man and you're like, oh, we're in New York.
Yeah.
He doesn't go anywhere else.
Geographical marker.
Nah, nope.
Yeah, even if you don't have him say anything, you have him swinging in the background. You know where you are.
Oh, New York. Gotcha. Okay, makes sense now.
All right. Anyone else want to drop their scores on America before we move on?
I think I'd give it around like a 6 or a 7. It's pretty similar to how you guys are saying. It's pretty normal intro. Getting to know a character, learning a little more about them. I think it's a little more interesting to know about her more. So it probably would bump it up to about a 7.5, like Brandon was saying. So yeah, I'll give it around that.
I would give this personally about a 6, just because it didn't feel like anything that happened in it necessarily needed to happen plot-wise. Like, they're fighting badger moles instead of like an actual villain. They leave you with like 2 pretty distinct cliffhangers. But I did really like the writing. I really like the art, and I did like the storyline overall. I just felt it was kind of lackluster.
I see that.
Yeah, I can agree with that. One thing that I just saw in my notes, because I wrote my notes out of order. I wrote this after I wrote my score. That I am hopeful that they write this well. It was neat that they're trying to tone her power level down a bit by giving her that touch of a weakness that they're referencing. For some reason, she's not 100% sure why her powers aren't working all the way. I've never had a problem with absurdly powerful comic book characters, but in some of her past appearances, she is really just, punching Galactus and things like that. So
exactly. Like I said, I'm finally getting to read the Ultimates and just seeing them take on like Eternity and Galactus and these theoretical concepts is like, it's pretty big. And so seeing them kind of tone it down a bit, I can see why you would want to do that. It lets you tell a bit more of a grounded story.
Mm-hmm. Especially if we're going to be talking about her human parents, really like taking that extra step to humanize her. I think that could do well, and that could lead to some really good high-rated moments in the rest of her series. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yep.
And America Chavez, Made in the USA #1, was brought to us by writer Kalinda Vasquez, artist Carlos Gomez, color Jesus Abertov, and letterer VC's Travis Lanham. And you can pick that up for $3.99. And now we're going to hop on over to Isaiah with X-Men Demon Days #1. Take it away, man.
Demon Days X-Men #1. I absolutely love this one. It had gorgeous art. Everything about it was pretty good. I enjoyed the ancient Japanese mythology folklore that came behind this. The story starts off with Sai, which is this reality Psylocke, going around, venturing off through Japanese landscapes, traveling around, fighting off these mythological baddies. One being Juggernaut with her Okami companion, Logan. Him being a wolf and all. And they're crossing some mountains. I want to say it was the Kirisaki Mountains, if I'm correct. And they end up in a village where they're being plagued by Orochi. And in this reality, that would be Venom. And this village is also having this conflict with Oni that live in the mountains and the people who live in, the forests and the regular lands. And typically they would be peaceful, but humans, being the greedy creatures we are, decided to start poking and prodding in their territory, taking some of their stuff, and they didn't like it. So they kind of raid and steal and pillage for what they need to survive. Which brings us to one of our main characters. She is upset and just entirely not having it with these Onis, taking stuff from them. And she decides she's going to go off and just kill them. She just has this capability. I'm going to do it. And ends up running into Sai and Logan, who said, "Oh, well, yeah, we'll take care of this for you. Don't worry about it." Where we do meet our Oni of the issue, Hulkmaru, a red Oni. I loved it. He was adorable. He seems so out of place, and he's even talking like how the Hulk normally does, like Hulkmaru want food, human bad, like a caveman. And they strike a deal that they'll leave some of your guys' land alone. You help us out, take care of this Orochi, and from there I'll let you read the rest. But it's definitely interesting, beautiful art, definitely something that's going to be take off with this little mini series. I can't wait to read the rest. I would say I would give this, in my opinion, about a 9. I think it was. Wow. Yeah, I give it a 9. I think it deserves that, at least being for what it is. Maybe an 8, because I do feel like for what it is, it's a good comic on its own. But at least from the first issue, it didn't feel very Marvel to me. Yeah. And that's just because that could be the Demon Days runs, just in general. But I liked it. And so I will give it about an 8 or 9.
I mean, I liked it too. Like, I enjoyed the art. The story was good. It was very, very fast read. It's weird. I think I got given 8 as well. but I don't think I would ever pick this up. Like, as much as I did dig this, but I feel this is an issue of just a one and done. I feel like I would not go back to this.
I don't think I would say that this is like going to be my top 10. I think this is like a good collector's issue. You have it just for what it is. It looks pretty, something that you can put on, display. But as I said, it didn't feel like a very good Marvel comic. It didn't have that Marvel touch. It just kind of slapped in like, here's Hulk, but he's an Oni, and we're just going to give him like a Japanese ending name, Maru, and then you have Logan, who's just kind of there. He seems like, yeah, this is my wolf friend, Logan. Yeah. What's my name? Sai. What's yours? Orochi? Oh, that's cool.
It feels like how at times like Marvel has the Spider-Man books in action by like I think like IDW. This feels this would be like by IDW as well. Like it has Marvel type essence, but it's not a legit Marvel brand. I mean, not like a Marvel tag in the front of it. It was odd to like have it.
I don't know. I'm such a sucker for like alternate universe stories, especially if it has kind of like a medieval Japanese setting. So on premise alone, this was probably going to win me, if I'm being honest. But I definitely had a really fun time reading this issue, and I thought a lot of the character interactions between some of the reimagined versions of the Marvel characters was really clever and really unique, and then I was just absolutely in love with the artwork. I've seen this artist, Peach Momoko, do covers before, but I don't think I'd ever seen her do interiors, so it was really interesting to see how that came to life, and it had a very vibrant, like Ghibli-esque atmosphere that I really enjoyed. So I think I would kind of come back to this one, just depending on where they want to take it. If it's like a series of one-shots that's just kind of like you can read it every month and they're one-and-done stories, I'd be fine with that, but I think I really enjoyed this one more than I had originally thought I was, so I'd probably give this one an 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5 on a good day.
Yeah, I had a good time with Demon Days. I don't think there was a part of it where I wasn't smiling, which, despite the fact that, the story is, like, it is like a bit of like an IDW comic. It feels a bit more kid-friendly, and almost like you could read this as a storybook. Some of these pictures, like I think back to that big page spread of Venom or Orochi occupying the temple with his eyes glowing out, and the blood aside from making it a children's book, but you've got these big page spreads that I think could really work as like a a children's comic or a storybook. And I do love that alternate universe stuff. The introduction of this universe is, I believe she was supposed to be Jubilee as Juju, the village Jushi.
I thought so. I was wondering who she might be from the Marvel side.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's Jubilee. She's got the pink over her eyes. She's got yellow sleeves with an X on them, and the magic she practices is fireworks. So
then
it's probably a fair guess.
Who's the horn gray chunky baby then?
That one I got nothing.
Okay, he's just kind of there.
That might be. No, I don't think so. I was thinking it might be Jubilee's kid, but she looks a little too young for that.
He kind of looked like, what was it, Extragen? What's his name from DC?
Etrigan?
Estrigan, yeah, Estrigan. It kind of looked like him, and I'm like, yeah, you seem out of place. You're not here.
Mm-hmm. All things said, I enjoyed the comic. The only like minor complaint I think I would have with it is when they got to actually fighting Venom. I loved the inky art style of how they depicted Venom during the fight, but it actually kind of made it difficult to figure out who was winning. Mm-hmm. There was a panel that really stood out in my memory where Hulk Maru he's got his fist clenched and he's saying smash and there's ink everywhere, but I can't tell if he smashed Venom or if Venom's hurting him. Or sorry, Orochi. Just because of the sort of the flexibleness of the ink, it kind of looks the same when it's winning and when it's losing, which was my real only complaint with the entire book. As far as whether or not I'd go back to this, I don't know that I'd go back to this in like everyone should read this and everyone should be reading it all the time. Yeah. But a collected anthology, I could totally put this on my coffee table because the art is absolutely cute enough.
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing where it's like, I hope they blow this up and put it in like a, like a big coffee table edition, like you just said, because that would look amazing. Like or actually I think it's Vertigo that does these absolute editions where they blow up the pages, and I have that one for Transmetropolitan, and it just has like the most beautiful giant pages of Derek Robertson's art, and I'm like, this is how comics should look.
And that's the thing is, like, having these, if they're going to have these one and done stories where, if I have people over who, they're definitely not reading every comic. Most of my friends are not active comic readers, if any, but something that they can pick up, flip through, and just see Hulk Maru pounding Venom, and they really don't need any context other than it's pretty.
Oh yeah.
I'm all about that. So I give the book an 8 out of 10.
That's fair.
And you also mentioned the covers that Peach Momoko draws. She's got an upcoming variant for the Valkyries that looks really good.
That's good. Oh man, I haven't seen that yet, but I'm gonna check online. I love the like the artist spotlight that Marvel will do every year. Like it's the Stormbreakers or something like that. They have them at like this magazine at my LCS, and it's showing like basically all the hot new Marvel artists, and she was one of them, and I saw those covers. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have to say that I definitely agree. I loved this comic, although I definitely agree that it didn't really feel like Marvel. And I also would say that the only real issue that I had with it as well was sometimes the art style made it a little bit hard to follow the plot, but it was very beautiful, and I think that the art style fit with the narrative very well. I give this probably an 8.
All right. Sounds like some good feedback for Demon Days.
Now, if they did this again with a different Marvel character, who do you guys all want it to be?
Ooh. I think I would want to see like Black Panther as like a shogun. If they do like this.
That would be nice.
Yeah. I want to see Captain America as like a totally stacked samurai.
Yeah, I want to issue with like Black Panther, Namor, a few other nice. Just those two with that kind of design, but like this kind of like style, like a Japanese type.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, it doesn't even have to be, this greater interconnected story. It could just be a bunch of self-contained one-shots, and I'd enjoy it just the same. And it sounds like that's the direction they're going. So
it's very fun. It's cool. It's interesting. It gives you something like to break away from some of these big series that are on, like in King of Black and everything. It gives you something to like just kind of relax and like drink some tea, drink your coffee.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's in the morning. Enjoy yourself. Here's some pretty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be curious to see sort of this. We did just see Orochi with Venom, and it was cool that they went with a serpent motif for Venom, as serpents are very representative of different things in Japanese folklore as they would be in American folklore. But with that said, I think because spiders are also a very different thing in Japanese folklore, I would love to see what they would do with someone like Spider-Man.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, how would you reinvent the origins, I wonder?
Mm-hmm. And same with, I know Japanese folklore features a lot of depictions of centipedes and things like that. So if you tied that in, I could see a version of Spider-Man's frequent foe, the Scorpion, but done with like a centipede motif, and I think I'd be all about that. X-Men Demon Days #1 was written and art by Peach Momoko, lettering by VC's Ariana Mar. The English adaptation was put together by Zach Davison, and you can pick that up for $4.99. And now we're hopping into Power Pack #4. Power Pack #4 is part 4 in the 5-part Power Pack, sort of loosely tied in with the Outlawed Champions storyline, and it features our Power Pack, the Power family, sort of right after the betrayal of their mentor, or the mentor betrayed them and took their powers, and it's a really just big like 10-page fight against Wizard, and it is cut in with what I have to say is probably the cheesiest imitation of like a influencer YouTuber. Like it was such a jarring read at first, because we've got, who is it Mass Master, I think, not Alex, what's the other kid's name? Man, I forgot the younger brother's name. Oh, it's Jack.
Thank you. Yeah, Jack.
he's doing his smash the heck out of that like button, and there's thumbnails of all the YouTube videos with the clickbait titles, and it was so cheesy. And at first, because this was not the case in Power Pack 1 to 3, at first I was like, where am I? But then it ties it up that this is Jack's sort of coping mechanism, that he knows they can't be famous, they can't be live streaming, they can't be out there. They're living with the reality of the Young Heroes Act. And it really wraps up after that with Wizard really just outsmarting them at every turn and really just making them feel bad. And the young sister, Katie, she's not happy with him. And you can see her kind of almost take a little bit of a dark turn to try and defeat the wizard. And at the end, he escapes with their powers, and they sort of have to make some decisions about what they want to do going forward. And Katie decides that she's got to call in the help for our finale to have a bit of an exciting guest star. So I'll leave who that guest star is up to your imaginations. But he shows up for some fun, keeping a secret from the family antics at the end, and it was an okay read. I sort of sprinkled my thoughts into that summary a little bit there. It was weird at first to be picking up on that live stream talk, and it was, it was very cheesy, but thinking about it, this is exactly like, this is what Jack watches on YouTube. You can tell that he would be picking up exactly those quotes right down to the clickbait. Like, he lives that life, he knows it. So I give it a pass on, what are the kids calling it? The cringe factor.
Something like that.
This was really, this is the part 4 in a 5-part. This is these kids having to trip one last time before they hopefully manage to pull it all off in the end. And I do like at the end that they called in another person, because where the champions are pushing for like there's a dark side to the Young Heroes Act. We've seen stuff like this happen in Civil War, and the champions are pushing to like have their own say at the table, especially because that was what the champions was founded on, that some of the adult heroes don't always make the best decisions either.
Yep.
But to have these kids say like, guys, Wizard spanked us and we almost hurt some people, let's phone a friend.
Yeah.
Like, I actually liked that. As much as I wasn't all in on the Power Pack, I had a good time with this one. The kids are fun. They didn't lead me wrong. I ended up giving it a 6 out of 10 because it was enjoyable, but it didn't blow me away.
It gave me big New Warrior vibes, the beginning of Civil War. Just the way that Jack Master Power does his whole like vlogging, trying to be hero famous. But I think that added a little nostalgia to it. People who were there for Civil War, or even caught it on later on after, when MCU made it a big thing with Captain America. I think it allows a lot of new readers to kind of take a modern spin that's a little more friendlier than Civil War was. I would say I'd give it about a good 5 or 6.
Wow.
For what it was. Like you said, it's very cringy. It's really corny. And Jack's not a very memorable character. I don't think I'll remember who he is. I mean, we had an issue just remembering his name just at the beginning. So I don't think he's going to be there for the long run. But as someone who's read Civil War, went years ago, I felt nostalgic. I think that's what gives it the middle of the rating scale.
I remember back when issue 1 came out, loved it. Issue 1, that just died. My hype got a little bit downgraded a bench eventually. But so far, issue 3 and issue 4 right now, I'm digging this. I think the downside has been the R throughout the issue, you can tell has been lacking, and then got a little bit better lacking, especially towards the end when you see his face. It needs a bit more detail, just a bit more detail. That's all. And I felt it was a bit forced on Katie's anger issues. That felt a bit forced. I feel like I'm like, wait, what? She's mad? Wait, you guys all mad because of this reason? But yet, why is But why is one of you guys not mad? Hopefully that setup we get in the next issue. But I think as of now, I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Good issue, but I'm hoping it can at least end it on a hurrah.
All right. And remember, if you are hanging on to that New Warriors nostalgia, remember that they're bringing them back with a new lineup soon. So,
Are they so?
Is that coming out?
is it? I thought for
no
sure
idea.
I saw it on a release
Thought it got
schedule.
canned.
Yeah, I thought COVID killed it.
COVID might have killed it, but I thought I saw it on an upcoming subscriptions page. I thought I had the chance to order it again. I might be out to lunch on that one, but if they're bringing it back, hang on to that New Warriors nostalgia.
Yeah. I have not. I know, big gasp. I have not been keeping up with Power Pack. This latest iteration of Power Pack. I kind of like when they announced the Outlawed books, and they had this and Champions as kind of like their big two. I was like, I'm going Champions because I'm more interested in these characters than I know Eve Ewing. But I think hearing that even though it is kind of corny, there is kind of a kind of a fun, lighthearted atmosphere to it has encouraged me to definitely try it out at some point. So I think I might give this one a read.
About the whole New Warriors as of like January 21st, I believe. Neither Marvel nor the creator will comment on the status of the series. That's unlike of all the titles that was canned as of last year, like that one, as well as Dark Ages by Tom Taylor and Web of Spider-Man. Dang.
Yeah, no, some series got cut. Actually, a lot of series got cut. But
Hey, at least COVID canceled a good series.
Any more thoughts on Power Pack before we move right on by?
I honestly didn't really like this one. I don't have a ton of like, I don't have a lot of opinions about it.
honestly, yeah, that's fair, I guess. I'm also not the biggest fan of Power Pack conceptually. I know it's aimed at a younger audience, so my opinion probably doesn't mean squat. But like, I mean, like I said, I'm encouraged to maybe check it out. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'd have to think about it. Yeah.
Just go read Civil War. The better Power Pack.
Honestly.
All right. Power Pack was brought to us by writer Ryan North, artist Nico Leon, color by Rochelle Rosenberg, lettering by VC's Travis Lanham, and you can pick it up for $3.99. Now Hellions number 10. Hellions number 10 continues where the Hellions arc left off before X of Swords and in the stuff post X of Swords, which is mostly just showing us that the biggest problem Krakoa is going to have to deal with is they've given Mr. Sinister everything he wants, and he's still going to cause trouble. Hellions 10 opens with him having a conversation with Mastermind, just sort of being flagrant in his dislike that he can have everything he wants on Krakoa, and it's somehow not enough for him. I guess you don't get a name like Mr. Sinister for nothing. From there, it picks up with him waking up after being manipulated by Mastermind, and Arcade has kidnapped him and the Hellions. What follows is, I want to say, a mostly like non-impactful issue. A lot of the pages were spent showing us the different Hellions' sort of nightmares and dreams that they were experiencing. We see Wildchild fighting Wolverine and Sabretooth. We see Quanon dealing with sort of the doubts she has about being Psylocke, and with Betsy out there, Betsy Braddock. And the whole body switch that happened. And you can see sort of the nightmare version of herself even has that pink purple hair that Betsy has. So there's some damage in there that I don't think she's ever going to be ready to shake off. And so we see these nightmares, but we do see what I just loved in this comic. I know I said this was mostly a bunch of inconsequential panels. Arcade and Mr. Sinister just talking, because we get Arcade, who is just deranged. Everyone knows he's deranged.
Oh, yeah.
But when he's talking to someone like Mr. Sinister, who is usually the most extra person in the room, I don't know. I felt like the writer actually made something happen between these two. Having Arcade sort of explain how he's dealing with working with someone like Mastermind. I loved the gag of getting him to confirm by reading through a microphone that's being beamed across the country and saying things like, I am about to rip out Mr. Sinister's teeth with tools I'm not trained in. Please confirm. And then the voice over the intercom, confirmed, that's happening, that's reality. and we have Mr. Sinister just screaming, not confirmed, please no. Like, I don't know. I had a lot of fun reading this. The issue really just, it showed that Arcade wants clones, which is just another thing he's going to add to Murder World. It might be a fun story arc later if he gets what he wants. We also know that Mr. Sinister, he's just happy to sell out anyone for any reason at any time. He's literally got clones of himself, yet he won't stomach a little bit of torture or dismemberment. He's got the loyalty of nothing, and he's definitely going to be a threat to Krakoa. I'm underselling this issue when I say that that's all that happened was Arcade tortured Sinister and we saw some nightmares, but in reality, there wasn't any big moments that were the turning point in this comic. I think the next issue or the next two issues of Hellions are going to be where this Arcade arc really bears fruit. But I had a lot of fun just reading. The writer Zeb Wells. He sold me on these interactions between Arcade and Mr. Sinister, and I read through the comic and I didn't have a single thing to complain about until I went into reviewer mode and I realized that nothing really happened.
Yeah.
So I'm a little conflicted on it. I gave it a high score, but if you're actually looking for something to happen, take my high score with a grain of salt. I gave it an 8.5.
Oh.
Yeah, I love seeing Arcade. It's a lot of fun. Arcade's one of the most offbeat, weird, crazy X-Men villains, which is perfect when you pair him with Mr. Sinister, who's also one of the weirder, offbeat, crazy X-Men villains. So that was just a great back and forth between the two. And then, looking into the nightmare realms of each member of the Hellions was also, I know it didn't really have any weight to it, but it was just kind of an interesting examination of their psyches, as well as just kind of seeing how each of them are mentally right now. But yeah, I think for me, the thing that really shines is just Arcade. I think he really made this issue for me, and I kind of go back and forth on the art a little bit. I think sometimes it really works, and then sometimes there are some panels where the faces are a little, questionable. But, on the whole, I'd say it's a pretty fun read, and if you're reading Hellions already, I'd say, yeah, just keep having fun with this. So yeah, I'd probably give this one a solid 7.5 out of 10, maybe an 8 on a good day.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely give this like a 7. It was a really fun read, but like you said, like when you go back and try to think of anything that like actually like meaningfully happened,
yeah,
there's not a whole lot of substance there.
No, it was a really good rising action, middle of that, getting to the climax issue. Like, as you guys said, Arcade, he steals the show. He's like gives me very big mixed vibes from DC as well, which I think that's what I like about Marvel Comics and some of their villains, and same thing with DC, that they have like some parallels to them that you could compare them to, and they kind of feed off of that with like whole Deadpool, Deadshot type of thing. Not Deadshot, Deathstroke. I agree. I really liked it. I like seeing everybody's fears. I like seeing Arcade kind of just stealing the show and then just stealing the whole thunder from Mr. Sinister. I give it a good 7.5.
I think I get this 8 out of 10. The art, it was good. I like what we got, but same thing as you guys were saying, how like for what we got for this issue, I wanted just a little bit more. Enjoyed it, but I guess it's just, maybe at most I can say there's just setup, I guess, in the beginning. But other than that, I'm really just looking forward to the next issue. Hopefully this progresses the story a bit more. So far, I'm digging the Hellions run and what we see from the team roster, because honestly, when they said who was on the team, I was so not interested at all in the characters. But I would say after issue after issue after issue, I'm really digging each and every character that we have on this team.
Yeah, I think the writing definitely sells it.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree on that. I definitely picked up Hellions only because someone said, hey, Mr. Sinister got his own team, and I thought that was funny. And the fact that I actually give any hoot about a team that has Orphan Maker and Nanny on it.
I know.
Exactly.
Scalp Hunter and like the lamest people from the Marauders.
It's like, who? What?
Yeah.
Right? And so I was like, I could not believe that this far in, I'm like, Hell yeah. I'll read Hellions.
Yeah. And enjoy it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this one is one I'm excited to get more into.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Hellions number 10 was brought to us by Zeb Wells, writing, artist Steven Segovia, color by David Curiel, lettering by VC's Ariana Marr, and you can pick it up for $3.99. And now, with Runaways number 34, I will pass it over to Brandon.
All right. So this is Runaways 34, part 3 of our Come Away With Me arc. This is kind of the second part of the crossover with mutants Wolverine and Pixie. For those of you unfamiliar, Molly, who is one of the Runaways, is a mutant, and the big cliffhanger of the last issue was that it was revealed that she had made correspondence with the people on Krakoa and that they had come to pick her up, and everyone's a bit shocked about that. So this issue kind of starts with them, talking about, is it true? Does she really want to go to Krakoa? And then Molly's trying to explain and basically saying that, she was really just looking for information. She wasn't saying anything about writing an official letter. But then Pixie chimes in and basically says, well, we got a call saying that, this is some mutant within this area wanted to come to Krakoa. So they're basically going back and forth trying to explain the situation. And Pixie and Nico Minoru, who is the sorcerer for the Runaways, are kind of having a little bit of a back and forth. Nico is not too happy, Pixie, but they're basically trying to rationalize what just happened, and it's revealed that Pixie essentially had used her magic to determine that the mutant that they were looking for was somewhere in Griffith Park, and I guess using that logic, she assumed that the only mutant who could be in Griffith Park was Molly. Of course, they reveal that that's not entirely true. There could be other mutants. They're not entirely sure. So it's a big bit of confusion. But basically, this issue kind of is the team up between our friendly Krakoan mutants and the Runaways as they're trying to solve the mystery of who is the mutant that called out to them. It's really just kind of a fun team up between the two. We get to see some really great interactions between Chase and Wolverine, as well as Molly and Wolverine, and of course Pixie and Nico, who kind of start out as frenemies towards the beginning, but sort of start to warm up to each other towards the end. And basically, as they're, they are traveling to find out where this mutant is, and they're heading up to Griffith Park, and they're in this other dimension or other room or something like that, and they're able to teleport out of there, but the ending basically just has them outside of that room. They've teleported everyone out, and we end on a little teaser of what might be some potential romance between Nico and Pixie. So all in all, I would say that this, along with the last 2 issues of Runaways, have really been picking up my interest. I had dropped off from this book after the previous arc, which kind of revolved around them joining a super team, which I think sounded really cool in theory, but the execution wasn't as tight as I'd hoped. And then, I'm going to be honest, I thought the book was canceled because it was like 7 months before they announced whether it was coming back or not. And I have been following this book since the start, and I know for a fact that up until like 2019, this book was pushing under 10,000 units. So I really thought they'd canned it. But I think someone likes this book because they keep putting it out. So I call it the little book that could, because it keeps surviving, and I don't know how, but I'm
I don't know how
glad.
it's still publishing.
Yeah, I'm glad. I know books have gotten canceled before this, and with much higher sales. But anyway, yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I think it was great to see kind of the interaction with the mutants who are now, living in the dawn of X age, with the Runaways who are kind of not too happy having to deal with them. And I thought it was just a lot of fun to read. So I would probably give this one a solid 8 out of 10. It's a great way back into the series if you kind of fell off, or if you're just curious to see what the Runaways are up to and you want a fun cameo from Wolverine, because you got to stick him in everything. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I personally am a huge sucker for Wolverine. I don't think anyone
Marvel isn't.
I really enjoyed this one. It felt like coming home almost in a way, like something you're familiar with. It's like oh, the gang's back. Like I did really like this one as well. I gave this one an 8.
I think I got an 8.5 out of 10. I enjoyed the art, the story was good, the dialogue, and just the Doombot, he has grown on me. Like, I enjoyed from what we got before with him and Victor being buddies, and then when he went away, then when he came back, I'm slowly like digging Doombot as a whole. Can't wait to see this future romance between Pixie and Nico, and where's this gonna lead with Carolina. I'm very surprised, like, because the last story arc, it started out good and then it went downhill very fast. I really wish that they like ended that story arc with that base being the new base, sort of how in the show Supernatural in season 8 when Sam Dean got a new bunker. I wish that was the new base, because the Hostile, they've been at that place since the second run of the whole series overall, back in 2005. So I thought maybe a revamp of the series is needed. I'm just curious to see what this overall story arc is going to lead to. Hopefully it's not just a bait and switch, because who is this mystery mutant? That's my main wonder. It's like, okay, I'm enjoying this story, just hopefully it can end or continue on a good note.
Yeah. Also, how great is that cover?
Oh, such a great one. I'm just looking at it right now.
I just like, it doesn't, it's funny, when they first released like the previews for this issue, or like the preview for the cover, I thought they were going to do like one of those word covers, like with text on it, and it was going to be like Wolverine saying like, "Get in, kid," or something like that. But I like that they kept it silent, because I can just fill it in with my own words.
I also feel like in most comics, you don't really see Wolverine being short. Yeah. But this cover,
they really exaggerate it this time, which I love.
Zero dynamic. I think Runaways in general is pretty underrated. I wouldn't say it's like, the next best thing, but I think this issue was entertaining, and it had a lot of moments that I think people can appreciate, and it did leave a little more to be desired. So I am kind of excited for the next issue, and it did a lot of foreshadowing. So with romances and concerns that are going to hopefully revealed in the next issue. I think the art is probably one of the best things about Runaways, especially with this issue. The characters are funny, they feel human, though very young, and I think with adding Wolverine to this, it did allow the comic to be fleshed out a little bit more. It gave a little bit more to an older comic book reader, because it gave some violence and a little more Wolverine banter, and some interesting conversations between characters. So I think there's a lot going on there, and I think if they keep it going the way that it is with issue 34, I think it'll start doing more than 10,000 units.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that really helped is that this book has kind of been in its own corner for like 2 years. And while I think that's worked and really bringing out the characters, it is kind of nice to see them, interact with other people to prove that like they're not in like some pocket dimension or something. Like they're still kind of connected. So it shouldn't just be a book full of cameos, but I wouldn't mind if they did that a couple more times, just because they've been through so much in the past 33 issues that it would be nice to see them kind of bounce off with other characters like Wolverine, like anyone else. They're in the West Coast, so why not drop the West Coast Avengers in this book? That feels like a gimme, but yeah.
Because the Runaways definitely have that, like, I can do it all by myself.
Yeah,
like, they don't need anybody else. And it's like, I would love to see a bigger villain make his appearance and try to like persuade the kids, like, join my side. We're cooler. Sure. We'll like you. You're not going to be ostracized for who you are.
They do need like a big bad, because when this series first started out, it was teased as if like when they Return of Alex was almost a big bad, and then the new Gibbons was the new big bad. They do need a overall big bad. Otherwise, we're just seeing this like these like traits. That's all we're getting. Like nothing to like entice my interest. Like, why should I want to read this long term? Although I'm also curious like why this book never has any kind of like event within it, because like as we're saying, it's like without these cameos, you could say that you could read these runs without knowing anything else in the Marvel universe, because like it wasn't part of Empire, it's not part of King in Black, it's not part of Outlawed. It's strange how then it's not part of anything with like event wise.
I think probably by design, just so it wouldn't interrupt the story. Because I know for me, it would definitely be like tonal whiplash if you were reading, the previous arc, and then all of a sudden it's like Empire, Scrolls, Kree, and you're like, oh my God, what is this? Especially if you're not reading any of those books. And if I had to guess, the people who are reading Runaways probably aren't the people reading the big cosmic event books, but
but that's with every event, though. Every event has some sort of other book run, has this tie-in, as we'll be checking out, and with King Black later on or so. I could think Secret Invasion and Civil War, they had a little bit of a Young Avengers / Runaways. I think that's the last time that they ever had a event within them.
Yeah.
I just think currently right now that probably would not be the best idea, just because King in Black has how many branches?
Oh yeah. Also,
and how many issues of each?
Yeah, I think just as characters, they don't really fit in big events. They're kind of, because they're always towing that line between being a book about regular people and being a book about superheroes. It's somewhere in the middle, and to kind of put it in there, it'd be a little bit weird. Like I said, it'd be a complete tonal shift.
And what are these kids gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. What are you gonna do against symbiotes or a bunch of the Kotati or something like that?
What about Outlawed?
Yeah.
That is a book about, that's an event about kids who try to be heroes. You could easily have Outlawed into this event.
Yeah. Well, I guess because they're not public heroes in that sense, they probably don't really fit under that umbrella, but,
Well, I actually think that would be a really great way for them to tie it in, because, like you said, they're always kind of their own island. And they're not really public heroes in any way. But if the Outlawed Act treated them that way, and just imagine if, not Tony Stark, but I just can't pick a good, old hero type character, just showed up at the front door of their hostel and says, I have to live with you to make sure you don't superhero unchaperoned. They would be livid. We'd have Nico, Molly, and Chase just tearing whoever showed up apart constantly.
Actually, you know what? You know who they should do? They should get some C-list, D-list Avenger. And that'd be a great way to kind of revive them. Just put them in a book like this if you weren't going to tie it into Outlawed. I don't know, Living Lightning or something.
All things said, I enjoyed this book. I don't have a big attachment to the Runaways run. I sort of bounced off of it in the middle somewhere, and I haven't really been paying attention to it. One of the things that I noticed when I was reading this particular issue, because I was a little murky on where the Runaways were at, was at first I found myself kind of not wanting to like it, because Pixie and Wolverine, they're there and they're really just being militant Krakoans. and Wolverine straight up says, why am I sent on these duties? And it really makes no sense why he was. We have seen so many comics where better mutants have been sent.
Well, we know why.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, we know why.
We were sent him because of that cover.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I was sitting there thinking that it was cheesy, and then they were spending a lot of time bickering about who sent the letter, let's find this other mutant, and then they were just kind of fighting demons in the Shadow Realm or whatever. And at first I wanted to pull away from it, aside from, like you guys said, you just want to love these kids.
Oh yeah.
The writing is nice and it's good, and when Chase is talking to Wolverine and he's it's just spelling it out that I really just sit here and wait for things that I can cut to show up. There's charm in the way they act. There was charm between Pixie kind of pushing Nico for how does your magic even work? It all worked, despite the fact that at the end of it, we still don't know who sent the letter. We still don't know who the mutant is, and we don't know what's going on with Nico. But we've got this budding romance, and we've got a lot of characters who I'm honestly just stoked to keep reading.
Yeah.
So I gave it a 7.5. Any final thoughts on Runaways before we move on?
Pick it up. It needs more readers.
Yes.
Needs a little TLC.
All right. Runaways was brought to us by writer Rainbow Rowell, art by Andre Genolet, color by D. Knife, VC's Joe Caramagna, and you can pick it up for $3.99. And now we're going to segue into Avengers Mech Strike number 2. All right. I'm going to summarize this one really quickly. It continues where Avengers Mech Strike number 1 left off, where the Avengers are dealing with huge, super matter-consuming monsters that just take in matter and become impossibly huge and can't really be killed by anything. But the only thing they can't take in is vibranium. So at the end of the last issue, Tony Stark made everyone giant toys, mechs, that integrate with their powers so they can fight these giant super beasts. This issue starts with, I think, 5 consecutive time skips totaling the course of 60 days, where it just shows Thor and Black Widow fighting a monster in their mechs, and then it's Spider-Man and Captain Marvel fighting a monster in their mechs. It's just a couple fight scenes between these mechs, and then the reveal at the end that, it was Kang the Conqueror. The monsters are from the future, and he's just here to be a jerk. He takes over Avengers Mountain instantly and turns around and says, "But I'm going to let you guys escape because we want to sell more toys." And that's the comic.
Oh, Jesus.
Sorry.
It was basically Power Rangers.
Yeah. I'm being really hard on this book. And the dialogue isn't terrible. It's just every panel.
Are you sure? I'm sorry, and I'm being mean.
You know what? Maybe the dialogue is terrible. Maybe I'm being too forgiving at this point. But every panel of this is really just giant robot versions of the Avengers that literally look like Lego released those like Avengers, like Iron Man, Captain America, Spider-Man, where you build them like Bionicles and they looked semi-robotic. And this just feels like they're waiting to sell those. I can't even believe that this is actually in any version of the current 616 continuity. It's not even the current Avengers roster who they picked for this. It's just like sort of the generic MCU roster plus Spider-Man, and Thor's robot looks like Optimus Prime, and it looks like, it feels like a toy tie-in.
That's accurate.
I didn't have anything in here that, and I like mecha. I like Gundam. I like giant robot. I like big goofy robot stuff. I like Power Rangers, Megazords, and everything like that. This just didn't feel impactful. The robots didn't look cool. There wasn't really any, like, it wouldn't have made the comic any better, but there wasn't a big splash page where I can really see the attention to detail on each of these mecha. I don't know. I feel like they made a comic about giant robots, but they're not really owning what makes giant robots cool. They're also just fighting sort of big blobby messes of brown matter. It's not, I don't know. It's not working for me. I gave it a 4 out of 10. And the more I talk about it, the more that number drops. So I'm going to pass to someone else who maybe hates on it a little less. I don't know. Maybe there aren't anyone who does.
I don't know.
I mean, I found it more or less just very boring. I felt that a lot wasn't happening. I felt that it felt very gimmicky. I honestly didn't partake to it much, but I also didn't read the first one, so like that might have influenced it a bit. I also gave it a 4.
This feels like the comic that you would get in the back of a toy box that you bought at Target.
Yes.
It's just like, yeah, exactly, right. And it's not even like, it's, I don't know. It's a book it's just so silly. It's so silly, and it wants you to believe that it's serious, especially with Kang. And I'm like, I can't take this seriously at all when they're running around and they look like freaking Transformers. Yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about this book, in that I also didn't read the first issue, so it was like just craziness. So yeah, I'd probably have to give this one a 3.5 out of 10, and a 4 on a very, very bright and sunny day.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go 4 as well. Like, man, this book, I want to know, like, what was a pitch that made it, well, hey, you know what, let's have this book out. Because, like, this, again...
You want to make toys at McFarlane, that's the pitch.
I guess so, because
we also need a comic, I guess.
You could have so many other ones besides it. Like, this feels like, again, with the whole IDW thing and all, this feels like, hey, IDW, you can use this as just a marketing, because nobody really talks about this book. This book doesn't get much attention, and you just read it and you know why. Because it's really... It doesn't feel like it should be part of the Marvel brand. It just feels out of place in many ways. That the art is okay. That's probably my only positive about this. The story, I'm like, okay, I'm not that big into Transformers. I enjoy Pacific Rim just a little bit. That's basically like, they was like, hey, let's watch Transformers. Let's copy that idea. just don't have a good story with it.
You know, it really felt like, you know, when you were a kid and you had to tell your friend, like, hey, if you ask my mom if I could stay over, or you ask your mom, or I'll ask your mom if you could stay over, and then they'll say yes. It really felt like Sabin, Hasbro, you know, snuck over to Pacific Rim and said, hey, go pitch this to Marvel, please. If you do, they'll say yeah. It was corny. It was bad, and it felt so out of place. Even the art was pretty iffy, and I'd give it a 2. And that's just because, like, a little kid would love it. Like, my nephew would think.
Would they though?
I think my nephew would think it looked cool.
As a kid.
I think my nephew would think it's cool. But, like, I think as soon as you hit past that 5-year-old threshold, I think it's like,
yes,
it's not that cool no more.
I think so too.
I gotta be honest, I feel like if they went full cheesy and instead of these big, weird mutant monsters, they just found some dumb way to write in that, oh, Red Skull's got a giant robot and Venom or Green Goblin's got a giant robot. And it was just all giant robots. And this was just, and then we could just close our eyes and realize, oh, we're in universe 1337 where everyone's a giant robot.
Be self-aware.
Just steer into the skid. Like, if it's silly, just let it be. Like, it looks silly, just let it be silly. But it's trying to be serious, and it's like, that just doesn't work.
And for those of you who didn't read issue number 1, this may lower your scores even further, but I just want to leave you with a treat of, like, you know, that issue number 1 just really, like, rubbed me the wrong way. The end of the issue, when they have now discovered that vibranium is the only thing that can stop these monsters, Tony turns around and says, well, I have giant robots made of vibranium that are perfectly outfitted to look like all of you and fit with your powers. And Spider-Man is like, oh, why are these here? And he's like, oh, I built them a long time ago. I get bored.
No, right, of course.
Like, they just zero explanation. He just has them. And then just my last drive-by shooting at this book before we're done is that the start of this book being a bunch of time skips showing that we fought like 12 of these monsters in 10 days and then 20 of them in 29 days, and the Avengers are run ragged, and it's really just these 7 Avengers are the only people fighting these giant monsters. By the time we were at day 60, I'm sitting here like, okay, the world cannot be in danger for longer than a day before Namor shows up and says, what are you doing wrong? Or Reed Richards coming out of somewhere to be like, hey guys, why is this taking you 2 months? Like a 60-day time skip of Tony and T'Challa just sitting in a lab being like, how do we win? We can't figure it out. We're not going to call Reed or Doom or anyone else who lives on this planet who might want to fight these aliens. Like, we're just going to have 7 robots and that's it.
But wait, we have robots that I made of you guys that look exactly like you. And it has your powers. We could use those. Insert toy commercial right there.
Yeah, I know. Seriously. Toy Biz or McFarlane will have these out in like 3 months from now.
Mm-hmm. And kids will buy them and play with them and will never read these comics.
Yeah. And to be honest, if I was a kid and I was playing with this, I wouldn't want to read this crap either.
All right. Avengers Mech Strike number 2 was brought to us by Jed McKay on writing, Carlos Magno on artist, color by Guru FX, and lettering by VC's Corey Pettit, or Petit. By the way, if I have gotten any names wrong, please feel free to let us know through showmail or on Twitter, and I will do my best to correct it next time. You can get this issue for $3.99, and we're going to move right into Avengers number 43, which continues the Enter the Phoenix storyline. I believe this is part 4 of 5 of the Avengers Phoenix storyline, which feels like it should have been a bigger deal.
Yes.
And they're just kind of burying it under King in Black. And that is a whole confusing thing. I know sometimes events kind of overlap and happen in pockets, but it is definitely weird to be reading an issue of King in Black where Captain America is literally dealing with Venom symbiotes in Manhattan. And then 1 second later, I'm reading an issue of him chilling out with Namor and the Phoenix Force, and it's all completely like isolated. Just a little jarring. But to summarize this issue, it opens with the question that I'm sure has burned a lot of online forums. Who would win, T'Challa or Logan? We see both of them duking it out in pure Phoenix Force garb, which, if some of you have been paying attention, looks neat on some characters, and if you're Logan, it doesn't. And so they're fighting it out to earn the power of the Phoenix Force, much like other characters are. And we get a good multi-page battle of them fighting that sort of devolves into a bit of a pissing contest between whose magic metal is better, vibranium or adamantium. We really just get them shouting out the things their metal is good at for a whole panel. And then T'Challa ends up winning because we find out that he has coated his teeth in vibranium, and that is what allows him to defeat Wolverine, which I didn't see that coming. I'll be honest. It then cuts to Namor and Cap sitting in the white hot room as they're preparing for their fight, and Namor, being true to Namor fashion, just lays it out for Cap that he doesn't care that they have fought next to each other. They're not friends, and he's gonna kick your ass. And then we see a few more of the fights. We see Red Widow take out Black Knight. We see Red She-Hulk fighting Jane Foster Valkyrie. We see a few more of how these fights are going. And the last big piece that I think also kind of felt swept under the carpet and should be a bigger event, we get a panel of the Phoenix talking to Thor and revealing that Thor is not related to Gaia or Frigga, and is in fact his mother is the Phoenix Force. And it shows him struggling with this revelation, and he seems to not believe it at first and then believe it come the end of the conversation. He looks a bit more remorseful about it by the end of the issue. And I'm not sure what to make of this revelation. The Phoenix is someone who, since the Dark Phoenix comics, I haven't been following in like excruciating detail. It really just kind of shows up and causes mayhem sort of wantonly. And then the issue ends with showing us the next few rounds, including that Captain America is going to have to be fighting T'Challa, which is another sort of legacy who would win throwdown, which, you know, those can be interesting to read if you really just like reading a who would win. I just found that most of this comic, as you may have heard in my summary, I just found that it was a little buried under itself, and weird details just sort of that we spent time on, and, you know, vibranium teeth and Namor being Namor and Thor's new mom. It was a lot of stuff that was that I guess should have felt bigger. A big Phoenix Force tournament that apparently at the end of, I think, next issue, we're going to have a new host for the Phoenix. There's going to be a whole new Phoenix. And I just am not attached to this story arc. We know it's not going to be Cap or Black Panther probably, or any of these other big names that they've roped in. It's probably going to be like Shanna. Is that her name?
Oh. Yeah, Shanna the She-Devil.
Yeah, that's who my money's on.
Yeah.
But I ended up giving this a 5 out of 10. It was suitably boring and kind of weird, but it wasn't like nightmarishly bad.
I just think it was like full of fan service. You know, it's like it's almost like every anime needs a tournament arc to be good. And this is what it felt like it was trying to be, was like, let's give somebody like, you know, cosmic powers by one of the strongest entities in Marvel, and we're gonna make it a tournament out of it, and then we're gonna give you you know, She-Hulk versus
Jane Foster
Valkyrie, and then you had Red Widow fighting Black Knight, and then you had Black Panther and Wolverine, and it's like, oh yeah, this is going to be a great issue because people want to see these, you know, big hitters fighting each other. And it just kind of felt really out of place, like you guys were saying, with it, you know, being up there with King and Black. It wasn't that good, and I'd give it about a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I got right there with you, like 4.5 out of 10. Like, this should be bigger than what this is. I kind of wish that this was like Marvel's next event, and then have the core issues be about the Phoenix Force, and then have all the side issues just be the fighting, like it was back in the Avengers versus the X-Men, when they had like those issues where like this character versus that character. Instead, the past few issues, we're just getting all the fights all at once. It just is, I don't know, it doesn't feel, I feel like I should care about more about this story arc than what they're giving me. I'm like, the art is, it's okay. We've seen it being a lot better throughout the run, but the story, not so much, and the dialogue is good for what we're getting at best.
Yeah, I hopped off the Aaron Avengers train a while ago, and this issue just kind of reminded me why I did that. It's a lot going on. I think I like the art a lot more than I like the story, and that's never a good thing. don't have much more to say about it than that. The interactions between Cap and Namor, kind of cool for a little moment, but other than that, not much to speak of. So I'd probably give this one 5 out of 10, just painfully average.
So I didn't give this one a score just because I haven't read the other ones. So reading this comic felt very strange. It felt like I was missing a lot of the story, and I didn't want to judge it based on just that. But I did really like the art style, and I will definitely go back and read the other issues.
All right. Avengers 43 was brought to us by writer Jason Aaron, artist Javier Garon, color by David Curiel, and lettering by VC's Corey Pettit. And the price you can pick this up at is $3.99. With King in Black Captain America #1, take it away, Nicole.
Okay. All right. So this one opens up on a really cool fight scene that I like a lot, with Bucky, Falcon, and then Captain America. And they fight, and then some stuff I'm not super familiar with happens, where Captain America is taken over by the villain that they're fighting, which is, of course, the main plot of this arc. And it has this really, gut-wrenching scene in it where Captain America is attempting to save a civilian, but kind of can't, and then Bucky and Falcon come in and save him. And yeah, this one was a little bit of a tough read. Basically, they defeat him for now. He runs away. The main characters, they do what they do. They banter a lot. That's about it. And it ends on this really cool panel where Captain America says, "It's time to get back to the fight," which is a really interesting thing to me, just because it seemed like the entire comic in universe would have only happened over the course of an hour, which I found really strange. I found the pacing of it a little bit off, but I liked it overall, and I personally gave this a 7.
I think I agree with in terms of the pacing. As for the tie-ins, they kind of don't really fit all too well. At least some of them don't fit all too well in the whole entire King in Black, because reading for the first 2 issues of King in Black, I'm wondering, when did Captain America have time to do all this? But I thought I thought it was an R8. I think it was one of the stronger King of Black tie-ins. Just for it had that moment of Captain America, this pinnacle of American patriotism, justice, doing the right thing, always being there for the people, and then he's just hit with that self-doubt that I'm not that great, I'm a liar, I'm a sham, I'm not all that I'm up to be, that people, the pressure that they put on him, and Noel's just sitting there eating away at his psyche, telling him you're nothing, you are nothing, and I will prove it to you right now, and you're gonna fail miserably as I continue to destroy this planet and take what I think is I deserve. So I think it played a really good parallel to who Captain America is, just in pop culture in generally, but also in Marvel Comics. He's usually, the forefront of any intergalactic, celestial, cosmic entity that's trying to threaten Earth or even his universe. And so I give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd probably have to agree with you there. I thought it was a pretty strong tie-in for Captain America. Certainly, I really liked the interior monologue that he's having with himself, especially, back and forth with Null. Really the only inconsistency I had was just with the art, where I felt like it wasn't as seamless as it could have been. A lot of it kind of clashed, and that didn't help, especially in scenes where you're really trying to sell a certain emotion. But a solid enough story, and yeah, I'd probably give this one a 7.5 out of 10.
I think I might be on the opposite side, guys, as at best, I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. The art has 5 artists, as we're going to see why, because none of them are very good. Maybe 1 out of 5 is very good. You can see what it changes, one page, it's so, it needs more detailed, and next page after that, very, very detailed, nice job. But the story itself, this was a issue and a half. It was 32 pages, did not need to be that at all. No, it was oversized for nothing. For what we got, this is easily could have been a good 18-page story, paying $4.99. We get a lot of Cap, yes, but when you have also quite a bit of Bucky and Sam, Wish we should have got a little bit more of them instead of they just had a few appearances that at most. Like, they didn't do much. They should have, like, at least, I don't know, like Danny Lore, I don't know if he's written much of any of those three, but I hope he doesn't write much more Captain America after that. Yeah, 5 out of 10. Would not recommend this book at all.
All right. Yeah, I wasn't against this book, but I didn't love it neither. I found that it wanted to do things that were reminiscent of good Captain America comics, but it didn't do them as well. We had Bucky and Sam banter that was all right, but it was cut short. We had Cap sort of dealing with what it means to be a symbol. If I fight, they fight. But what happens when I lose? What happens when the symbol loses? And the ramifications of that. And that was neat. And then sort of the question of whether or not Cap's in control. We have these moments where he's Venom Cap and he's grabbing Bucky. But then one panel later, oh, that's not happening. He's imagining because Null's in his head. So it ends up being like you all said, a pacing sort of framed nightmare. He fails to save someone. Oh, but that didn't actually happen. Oh, he's hurting Bucky. Oh, that didn't actually happen. So we spent a lot of time on sort of stumbling over the pieces of this story for Cap to get to the revelation of, it doesn't matter what's in his head as long as he's got his convictions. And we've seen Cap with his convictions in better comics. I thought it was fine. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I didn't hate it. I just feel like you can read this exact same Captain America story better somewhere else. King in Black Captain America was brought to us by writer Danny Lore, artists Mirko Kolak, Stefano Landini, Roge Antonio, and Nico Leon. Color by Eric Achinjega, and lettering by Joe Caramagna, and it's priced at $4.99. So now we'll hop into King in Black Thunderbolts number 3. Over to you, Anthony.
Now, last time we saw a team, they found the bottom of Sentry's body, so this beginning of this issue, they find this top half, and no question about this is, well, besides Hellions, this is basically Marvel's Suicide Squad from DC, which they even just mentioned, saying, Mr. Fear say, Fisk put us together for this. The whole squad is suicide, making a huge nod. The dialogue between the team is great. Now they head over to the whole task, which is just like for Star to defeat the big bad Null, which, as we learned out a few years ago in Furia Spider-Man issue, that Titans, no, they don't really defeat the big bad, even if they can. One thing that this book has constantly been doing, well done, is just the action scenes. We get this great action scene with Taskmaster as he's trying to hold off all of the symbiotes that will be controlled by Null. All for Star and the rest of the team to get up on top of the roof so she can sacrifice herself as well as with the rest of the team to save everybody. But after some time bonding, Taskmaster, he knew the whole plan. He knew that Fisk wanted it all to go down the way it is. For Fisk to say, hey, you know what? I can do something to help them, but without showing I'm really the bad guy. Show his two sides, as he's well known. But Taskmaster, no, he likes the team too much. And we see him actually tricking Fisk, saying that the explosion was fake, and we find out that actually this book could be a ongoing, as they go to Fisk saying, we're going to blackmail you to give us the money because we love this job. Now this book, I'm easily giving this a 9 out of 10. Great book. The art was phenomenal. There were a few panels, I would say they were pretty good, but the rest was phenomenal. Great story, great dialogue. The team is definitely a team that I would not expect I would enjoy so much, especially like Batroc, Mr. Fear. I've only read a few stories with them. I wasn't gonna say like I love them from those stories, but truly enjoying them after this story, especially the whole roster we get at the end of the story.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this book as well. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I loved the culmination of this new Thunderbolts roster. I love seeing that Tony Masters is, or Taskmaster, he's in it with this team. When he was about to betray them, I was like, no, don't do it. Come on. And he really didn't. They screwed over Fisk and hinted that there might be a new Thunderbolts run maybe with this lineup in the works, and I'd be about that. Like, I didn't think I'd care much about a lineup with Batroc the Leaper on it, but it worked for me. And the one line that really got me when, Taskmaster goes down and is about to just get taken out, and the Thunderbolts save him, and he's like, "Why? I voted against picking me up," and she looks right at him and she says, "We're the Thunderbolts. Screw everyone else." Mm-hmm. Except she didn't say screw, but and that line just worked for me. With a team like the Thunderbolts, the tongue-in-cheek jokes about Weekend at Bernie's, everything like that, I had a good time with this. I didn't think I would, but it was a fun tie-in.
Yeah, I thought Thunderbolts was pretty strong for a tie-in compared to the other ones. I thought, the art was great, the story arc was great. As like you said, I didn't really think that I would be too interested in Thunderbolts or think I would want another Thunderbolts, but after reading that, I was like, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. I like how they're taking a more mature, more approach to it. Not that Captain America didn't. I just liked how they were dealing with the whole Black Tide issue going on. So I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, this issue is pretty solid. I don't really have anything new to add. I just like everyone else, I really enjoyed the dialogue. I love this artist Juan Ferreira. He did Green Arrow. It's great to see him do more books at Marvel. So it's always a delight to see his artwork. And I haven't loved this tie-in, but I think this was kind of a satisfying wrap to it. So all in all, a pretty fun read. I'd probably give this one a 7 out of 10, maybe a 7.5 on a good day.
Yeah, I'd agree more with that one. Just because, again, I'm still pretty new to all of it, so I feel like I'm probably missing some plot points that probably would have been better on me if I had I guess known about them. I feel like some of the references were a little bit lost on me, but that's fine. I really enjoyed it though. I thought the art style was incredible. I liked it a lot. And I gave this one a 7.5.
All right. King in Black Thunderbolts #3 was brought to you by writer Matthew Rosenberg, artist Juan Ferreira, and letterer Joe Sabino, priced at $3.99. So now we're going to hop into King in Black tie-in Hulkling and Wiccan #1. This we see Hulkling and Wiccan are new King of Space as of Empire's event last year, and his prince consort / court sorcerer being gifted their honeymoon by the Shi'ar Empire, which they go on with L'Oreal the Accuser to celebrate their newly crowned wedding, which was a bit of an exciting piece of the Empire event last year. They have a couple fun, honeymoon gags and them just trying to ditch the Accuser, who's there for muscle / security. We get the introduction of the Champagne Bot, who I'm all about, and I need one in my life. And then it jumps into from there sort of being a, they went a little extra, I would say, on the opening piece, the fun honeymoon piece, before tying in with the King in Black conflict showing up. The symbiotes show up and they get embroiled in fighting and then getting separated and having to save the people who are vacationing on this honeymoon planet. And they use Wiccan's magic to sort of empower the Star Sword that Hulkling has, and they really managed to purge the symbiotes from a few of their pilots who had gotten picked up in the area, and they evacuate the resort and manage to pull one together sort of for Emperor Hulkling's sort of style of being a superhero / king, which we know both his sides of his parentage, the Kree and the Skrull, tend to view that mentality as weakness. It seems to be working out for him time and again currently, and I like that sort of silver lining piece to it. This was charming. I'm a sucker for Wiccan and Hulkling, I gotta be honest.
Oh yeah.
Anything I read with them, I'm gonna review higher than I should. Just because they're so sweet, and Hulkling is just a big goofy space boy, and I love him so much. My literal only complaint with this entire issue was that I liked the honeymoon phase and I liked the action phase. I don't know that it needed to be a 30-plus page comic for what happened, but I had fun, so it's hard to complain. I like L'Oreal, the Accuser. She's new and also a good time. And obviously, it didn't impact the tie-in or the actual event at all. So as far as relevant tie-ins go, if you're looking to only read the stuff that actually showcases how they're going to defeat Null, you're going to have to miss this one out. But you're going to have a good time if you pick this one up. I gave it an 8 out of 10. It really just, it shows what Wiccan and Hulkling are up to before we hopefully see them in the new lineup of the Guardians of the Galaxy coming up next month.
Yeah, very exciting. Yeah, I definitely felt the same way. I'm like you, I love seeing Wiccan and Hulkling. It's totally a bunch of fun, and any interactions that they get to have are simply a delight, and seeing them work with the Accuser was just like that whole interaction was great. So I knew I was going to have a good time with this, and whether it needed to tie into King in Black or not, I don't really know, because honestly this felt like a little disconnected, but maybe that's just me. But yeah, I definitely had a really good time. Loved the art. Love Wiccan and Hulkling, so I'd probably give this one a strong 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I loved it. It was just really cute. Like, I love the chemistry that they have together. I love the art style. The whole idea of like a honeymoon planet is just really cute to me. I liked it a lot. I also gave it an 8, but I also agree that I don't really think this had any like super relevant plot to like the tie-in arc.
I think I'm brother with you. Like, I give this a 7 out of 10. I think I would like this issue a little bit more if it was not as long. It was like about a normal size issue, 21 pages or so. Enjoy what we got, especially how like recently with WandaVision, we're seeing like Billy. So I'm very enjoying learning more about Wiccan as a character. Maybe if we had like a miniseries, I would love that. But this prolonged one story, I don't know. The art, it was good, but 7 out of 10. I wish I would get a little bit more of like just the action. It was too much dialogue per se.
I agree. I think as a King in Black tie-in, I think it's pretty weak, and it probably should have never been a thing. But I think as a Hulkling and Wiccan, standalone, I think it's great. I'd give it a 8.5. But I think as it stands, I would give it a 7, and that's just because of the tie-in. I think Hulk and Wiccan as characters themselves carry the entire thing. I think in the overarching story, I don't think it really fits or why it was a thing, but I appreciate that Hulk and Wiccan are getting some love.
Mm-hmm. And Hulkling and Wiccan was brought to us by writer Teeny Howard, artist Luciano Vecchio, color by Espen Gruntadjern, and lettering by VC's Ariana Mar. And you can pick that up for $4.99. And Nicole, I know that we're about at your time, so before we hop into fully summarizing Gwenom v. Carnage, do you want to drop your top 3 of the week and your bottom of the week and then your favorite moment, just so we can get you before you have to go?
Absolutely. So my top 3 were X-Men Demon Days, America Chavez, and The Runaways. I really liked that one as well, even though I think I scored it low. And my bottom was Avengers Mech Strike. So my favorite moment was in America Chavez when her adoptive father was debating with her adoptive mother. Her mother was basically trying to say, like, we can't provide for her, we don't have enough money, we live in an apartment, and her dad responded with, the only thing we need in order to give this kid a home is love. And I really like that a lot.
That's a really good line. I really like that. Thank you, Nicole. It's great talking with you, and we'll talk soon.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right, Isaiah, do you want to cap out our recording with your summary of King in Black, Gwenom versus Carnage number 3?
Absolutely. So this, carries on from Gwenom versus Carnage 1 and 2. Mary Jane Watson from Earth 65 has made her way to Earth 616, correct me if I'm wrong, during the events of King in Black, where some of the symbiotic spiders attached to her and actually caused her to become Carnage. And Gwen Stacy having, deal with the ghost spider, having to deal with some of the issues that she's come across with Peter Parker, receiving some fatal injuries from Earth 65, and trying to track her down so she could save her. This is probably one of the few remaining, friends that she has from her 65. And, seeing, losing some of them is just not something that you can do, especially in a Marvel comic. You can't lose your friends. So she's chasing her across New York City, trying to convince her to stop with Carnage, doing Carnage banter, saying like, oh, you must have a thing for me, or I'm just too irresistible, which I think that added a lot of comedic humor to this comic, though I didn't really feel like it was also one of those weaker titles that I don't think really belonged in King of Black. But for what it was, I did think it was funny and entertaining. But that was kind of it. I don't believe it saw its resolution yet. I think there's one more issue to come, if not two. It was on the shorter end compared to the other tie-ins. It was 28 pages compared to the last few that had about 33, 34. I would give it a 6 out of 10, and that's just because it just kind of felt out of place.
Yeah, I'd probably give this a 5 out of 10. Didn't have a ton of thoughts on this one. I really liked the color work that was used in creating some of like the really greener and more purple parts of the scenery. And I know that I think it's the colorist who actually did the Spider-Gwen book, so that's probably fitting. But I hadn't read the first two, so jumping into this was like a little bit of a shock for me, so I wasn't really sure what was going on. But yeah, it's it's not terrible in any sense of the word, but not particularly standout. Just kind of somewhere in the middle for me. I've never had any particular attachment to Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider in particular, so I'd probably give this one about a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I'm right with you. 5 out of 10. The only reason why we had this was, of course, Spider-Gwen. This is a Spider-type event, especially how she has a Venom-type symbiote suit. That and most stuff throughout this 3-issue story has been forced. Even the whole necklace a bit forced, and it kind of sucks that this actually is the ending of this story. So we're not getting a next issue, especially by the little cliffhanger with Mary Jane's eye. I'm like, okay, hopefully this part gets a little bit it gets resolved by the end of the whole event, because not many people actually read the Gwenom or the Ghost Spider book. So to carry that onto that, I think it's just a little bit poor thing to do. That won't draw in new readers. The art, it was good back in issue 1, but as each issue went on, it went down and down. The story as a whole, it feels like as if it can honestly could have been 2 issues at the most. Did not need to be this extra third issue. It's just a generic Mary Jane is mad at Gwen story. Nothing much really happens. A 5 out of 10, and that's being nice.
I'm sort of in the same boat as Anthony. I gave it a 5 out of 10. I found that everything that was said in this one between our two characters who are longtime best friends with a lot of Mary Jane versus Gwen beef in the Ghost Spider continuity. In issue 1, we had Mary Jane saying how much Gwen sucked and how she was selfish and kept everything for herself. And issue 2, we had that. And in issue 3, the finale, we have MJ just keep running away from Gwen in each of these scenes, and saying, how much of a crappy friend Gwen has been to her, and really just feeding that anger. And it just felt like the same fight for the past 3 issues. And I feel like the main reason we got this issue is because it should be a slam dunk. You can't go 2 feet on a Marvel website without finding someone who loves Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider, and giving her a symbiote, making her Gwenom. People love that, and pitting her up against a Carnage, her own Carnage. It was going to be a slam dunk in terms of people would want to read it, but I just don't feel like they actually put the effort to make it as entertaining as it could be. And then the visuals on the fight in the end with the half rock off, half fight, half Carnage with the big long sweeping colors, it was aesthetically striking. You don't see a lot of comics that look that way. But I wouldn't say that the action was gripping. So I gave it a 5 out of 10. And King in Black Gwenum vs. Carnage was brought to us by writer Shannon Maguire, artist Flaviano, color by Rico Renzi, lettering by VC's Ariana Marr, and priced at $3.99. And that brings us to the end of this week.
Nice.
We did it, everyone.
Ooh, a lot of reading.
Yep.
It was, yeah. So now let's start with everyone's top 3. Who wants to go first on their tops of the week?
I'll go first. From 3, 2, 1, I have Hellions issue 10, followed by Runaways issue 34, and then book of the week is King Black Thunderbolts issue 3.
All right, good picks. Brandon, how about yours?
My top 3 from 1 to 3 would be Runaways at first. I would say probably Wiccan Hulkling, the King in Black tie-in at 2, and Demon Days at 3.
All right, and Isaiah?
So I would say Runaways number 3, Thunderbolt number 2, and Demon Days number 1.
Good picks. For my top 3, I think I have to go with number 3, Hellions 10. Number 2, I would give to Wiccan and Hulkling. And number 1, I think I got to go with Demon Days. It's really refreshing, and it's a great read. It is wholly different from a Marvel comic. It feels weird to give it the number 1 of the week, but it doesn't feel bad to say it's fantastic.
It was a good break from all the heavy hitters that are going on right now.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think the next Demon Days issue I'm gonna save as like a little bit of a glass of water between a reading binge. If after maybe they'll launch a Demon Days next to Mech Strike number 3, and I can have that as a chaser.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and speaking of, now we go to
The biggest thinker.
Oh, that's nasty.
There's Mech Strike number 2.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling that as well.
It's tough between that one and for me, Captain America, King Black.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there were some duds this week, but nothing compares to something that feels it feels like a Happy Meal comic book.
Yeah, exactly. Like a toy box comic book, like I said, just cheap and uninspired, and just not entertaining at all.
I think was it McKay?
Yeah.
Just needs to stop. Just stop.
All right, and now favorite moment.
I think mine is probably the double page splash of Wolverine, Molly, and those guys just fighting a horde of these otherworldly creatures. I'm not even really sure what they are, but it's a great double page splash. And I love the caption at the end where it's like, Chase is saying to Molly, "Are you okay?" And she's good. And the caption's just like, "Looks like they're good." I just thought that was perfect.
I think for me it's being King Black and Thunderbolts when we see Taskmaster just killing one of those symbiotes. Just how badass it makes him look, and just the artwork was nicely done.
I would say my favorite moment is in Demon Days when they kind of introduce Orochi inside the temple. With the way that this ink drawing was done, and you have Orochi kind of peering outside of it, kind of like with red, that stereotypical red eyes and the shadow type of thing, but with obviously Venom's characteristics. I thought that added a lot to Demon Days.
Mm-hmm. I went with a different favorite moment. There were a lot of really good ones we talked about where the Thunderbolts screw everyone else, and some cool moments. But it's rare that I laugh out loud when I'm reading a comic. So I wanted to give my favorite moment to Hellions 10, right after Arcade has said, "I'm disciplining Mr. Sinister, confirm," when Mr. Sinister comes back with, "I'm being assaulted by a Chucky doll, confirm."
Yeah.
And it made me laugh, and I really, I wrote it, I circled it, I was like, this is something that I liked.
Oh yeah.
So with that, does anyone have any thoughts they want to add before we close out the show?
I thought this week was pretty middle of the road.
Yeah.
But it did have some little hidden gems in there. Here's to next week being just a little bit stronger. So then, we won't have any Mech Strike number 2s.
That would be nice.
And that's the show. Come back and listen next week when we'll talk about, I'm sure, some more King in Black tie-ins, as well as just a few other issues that, like we said, there's no Mech Strikes on the docket for next week. So we'll we'll have something refreshing to look forward to. As always, you amazing humans out there, thank you so very much for listening. You're the reason why we do this. Visit campsite.bio/notarobot to hear all our episodes on nearly any podcast platform, and patreon.com/notarobotpodcast for the exclusive content we make for our patrons, again for just $1 a month. Visit notarobotpodcast.com, and that will take you everywhere you need to go for everything Not a Robot. With that, there's only one way we say goodbye around here. Until next time, be good to each other, and don't be a robot.
Drops now, the end of the